What fire strategy is right for you? Is it lean fire, traditional fire, fat fire, or coast fire, or how about a chubby fire? And I understand that every one of you has a unique financial situation. You may be someone who is in debt that you're desperately trying to get out of. You may be someone who just started to invest and you're trying to get to know the best way to maximize your investments. You may be someone who's been investing for a while and you're contemplating for early retirement, but you're not sure which strategy is the right one for you. And you may be wondering if this financial independence movement is right for you at all. And there are many Americans who aren't even aware of the financial independence movement simply because they were never taught about investing at school or at their jobs. When I was a kid, I was taught to work hard, take out a mortgage, and collect Social Security in my 60s. I was taught nothing about how to save or invest, but just to work until I could collect my Social Security retirement. And let me ask you this: how much were you taught about filing your taxes when you were in high school? Did your parents ever teach you how to budget or pay your bills? At your job, how often does your employer give you training about your 401k? Did you ever learn about the power of compound interest before watching this video? Now, don't get me wrong, I have no problems with people working when they're retired. But the purpose of the FIRE movement is that people should work only because they want to, not because they need to. There are millions of Americans who are not even on track to retire on time. So why am I even talking about the FIRE movement? Because understanding the concept of FIRE will open up many doors for you and the generations after you. I'm going to continue to work going into my 40s, 50s, and 60s to have my financial consultation business to help people get out of debt, budget, and invest in their future. But I'm not going to do it because I need to do it. I'm going to do it because I want to do it. And my mentality with the FIRE movement is not to focus on my early retirement, but to focus on the financial independence piece so that I have the option to retire at any time. So financial independence is what we focus on so that we have the possibility to retire early. And whether you are doing FIRE or not, every one of you is trying to achieve some type of financial independence so that you don't have to rely on your 9 to 5 job for the rest of your life. The concept of FIRE is to save, invest, and aggressively invest now so that you have the possibility to retire early in your 30s, 40s, or even 50s. And FIRE followers cut their expenses to the minimum so that they can increase their savings rate. Maybe you're not the type of person who wants to cut expenses because you enjoy living in the now. But ask yourself this question: if you can invest at least 25% of your investment in your retirement account, and can you do it intentionally with the 25% and then increase your savings rate by increasing your income? Your savings rate and time are what matters the most. Can you save and invest 50% of your income now so that you don't need to save as much as you get closer to FIRE? If you quit your job today, would you be able to use your investments to pay for your living expenses? If the answer is yes, then you are financially independent. If the answer is no, you still have steps you need to take in order to get there. And let me give you an example of a traditional FIRE. If you think you're going to spend $75,000 a year on your retirement budget, then you're going to need at least $1.875 million, because that's $1.875 million invested by multiplying 75,000 by 25. You also need to keep inflation adjustments in mind, because is this going to be the dollars now or dollars in the future? So for example, if you have $1.875 million invested, then your 4% withdrawal rate would be $75,000 a year, right? Because if you multiply 1.875 million by 4%, it would be 75,000. Something else you need to consider is your bear market fund. Is what happens if you retire but your portfolio declines by 20%. People in the FIRE movement strive to save at least 2 years of their expenses in cash or cash equivalent assets just for this bear market scenario. If you're a high net worth individual with a $5 or $5.5 million investment portfolio, then you might need 3 years of your expenses set aside. And the bear market year, like in 2022, would have been the perfect year to use cash to pay for your retirement expenses. When the stock market recovered in 2023 by gaining a 26% return, then that's when you live on your investments again and sell some more to replenish your cash savings. And being financially independent is a subjective term. your FIRE lifestyle is not going to be the same as mine, your neighbors, or anyone else's. How you want to retire is not going to be the same as my retirement lifestyle. Here's some questions you can ask yourself to decide your FIRE strategy. One, when or where do you want to retire? Are you looking to retire somewhere close to your family? Are you looking to retire in the city, town, or somewhere even more remote? Two, what are your day-to-day expenses going to be? Are you the type of person who wants to eat out every single day or every single night? Or are you the type of person who wants to travel every month, every quarter, or every year? How much do you think it'll cost you at the baseline for your expenses? And three, do you want to work a part-time or full-time job when you reach your FIRE number? Are you going to have other income sources like businesses, real estate, social security, dividends, or pensions? Four, do you have a bucket list or hobby in mind when you retire? I'm personally looking to travel to every NFL stadium in the US when I retire. And my wife wants to see every waterfall on our planet. And five, do you or someone in your family have a chronic health condition that's going to require you to pay more on out-of-pocket healthcare expenses? Because you have to remember that you're not going to be eligible for Medicare until you're 65. So you'll need to budget for these healthcare expenses, expected or unexpected, if you're looking to retire earlier than 65 years old. And the next thing you'll need to do is to create a mock retirement budget. If you think millionaires don't budget at all, you're wrong. If you don't budget, you will never have any idea how much you'll spend or save. But if you're thinking about your early retirement, here are some things that you can get started with. And first, how much is it going to cost to keep a roof over your head? Are you going to have a balance on your mortgage, or are you going to have your house paid off by the time you're retired? Second, how much is it going to cost to keep utilities running in your house, like your phone, internet, cable, water, trash, sewer, electricity, and gas? And third, how much is it going to cost to buy your groceries each month? And how much do you plan to eat out? Fourth, how much is it going to cost to pay for your transportation? You shouldn't have a car payment. So the only thing you should have is car maintenance and DMV registration, right? How much is it going to cost to pay for your health insurance, homeowners insurance, and medical insurance? If you're a high net worth individual, then you might need to consider umbrella insurance as well. And six, how much do you plan to spend on entertainment every year? This is where you need to calculate how much you spend on anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas, and other things that you want to buy every single year. Once you have a baseline budget figured out, you should be able to use your current annual expenses to project your retirement budget. As you get closer to your retirement age, you should be able to calculate your total retirement budget, but just remember to adjust it for inflation every single year. And the next step is to get rid of your debt. No one on the FIRE journey will ever say that getting a car loan or getting a credit card debt is a good idea to achieve FIRE. I once had almost $110,000 in consumer debt, and I couldn't start my FIRE journey until I had my debt completely paid off. But it is important to get out of debt as soon as possible so that you can increase your savings rate to achieve financial independence. Do not hold on to your debts unless it's a mortgage debt or something else that's appreciating in value every year. And the next step is to get a handle on your investments. You need to understand your investment timeline. So first, you need to understand the types of investment vehicles you currently have. Your long-term investment vehicles are with your 401k, Roth IRA, and HSA. Your intermediate investment vehicles could be with your taxable brokerage accounts. You need to know how they operate and the tax advantages that come with retirement accounts. Second, you need to know or understand what you're investing before you start investing. If I tell you I'm investing in VOO, I can tell you that it's a Vanguard S&P 500 ETF that tracks the performances of the S&P 500 index with the 500 largest US companies like Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Meta, Berkshire Hathaway, right? And I can't tell you how it's going to perform in the future, but I am comfortable with having my money invested in index funds. And this is not in any form of financial advice. The point of me telling you all this is that you need to be able to describe the investment and have a clear understanding before you put any money into it. Third, you need to know how much you're paying in management fees, maintenance fees, and any other hidden fees with your investment vehicles. You could be paying 2% in total fees annually while your investment performs 8% annually. Your net return for that investment would just be 6%. That doesn't even account for your annual inflation rate. And fourth, you need to know if your investments can handle a 4% distribution rate. If your fund performs 7% annually with a 4% withdrawal rate, your investment portfolio will perform 3% in net return. You have to make sure that your investment does not run out of money throughout your retirement. The best case scenario is that you don't just rely on the stock market to retire early, but you should diversify your assets with both tangible and intangible assets like real estate, businesses, and royalties. And lastly, you should know the rules for your 401k, Roth IRA, HSA, or other tax shelter investment accounts. Each account comes with its own rules, characteristics, eligibility, and benefits. And the next step is to be flexible with your FIRE plan, but you have to stick to your investment plan. Some things that are gonna change is your expenses. Your FIRE expenses could either go up or down every year, and it's gonna depend on your situation. Let me give you some examples. If you're looking to retire after your kids move out of the house, then your expenses will most likely decrease from tuition, books, food, and your general cost of living. You could have unexpected healthcare or health problems that might require you to pay for prescription medications out of pocket. Or you could have your spouse or other immediate family members who require consistent medical attention due to chronic conditions. And you might be looking to increase your quality of life now, which could carry over into your retirement. And the bottom line is that you need to pay attention to your current budget and your spending habits, because your expenses will change your FIRE number on an annual basis. You have to account for inflation when you calculate your FIRE number, even if your spending habits don't change, right? And your cell phone bill this year might be $70 a month, but next year it might become $75 a month. What do you think it'll be 10 to 20 years from now? By the way, I am so fired up to announce the launch of my private FIRE community for people just like you and me who are passionate about investing, saving, and achieving financial independence and exploring different possibilities to retire early. My private community will allow you to connect with me on the platform and get in touch with other like-minded individuals or couples who are just as serious as you are with the FIRE movement. As a member of my private community, you'll get resources like investing, saving, paying off debt, or finding the right place to grow your money. For a very limited time, please enjoy the free trial by clicking the link in the description below. I have been following my financial independence checklist since 2014, and I can only hope that you do the same. And once you have your budget figured out, these are the steps you want to take to get started on your financial independence journey. No matter what type of FIRE you want to achieve, you have to calculate your FIRE number. If your expenses will be $100,000 a year, then it's 100,000 multiplied by 25. And that's how much you need to have invested at the bare minimum to achieve FIRE. You also need to multiply by 2 to have the cash or cash equivalent assets set aside in case of a bear market. And the next step is to make sure to have a rainy day fund, but only up to the total deductibles you have for your insurance. If I ever get in a car accident, that's $500 in deductible. If I ever go to an ER for any medical reasons, that's another $500 in deductible. If my house experiences any damages, that could be another $1,000 in deductible. And you could be someone who just needs $1,000 set aside, or you may need $2,000 because you have a pre-existing health condition or a dependent who relies on you. Remember that if you ever need to use your rainy day fund, you have to pause everything else until you're fully replenish it. And what you don't want to do is to put too much into your rainy day fund if you're still in debt. It should just be a little cushion, right? And the next step is to contribute to your retirement like your 401k, but only up to the employer match. You should never leave free money on the table. If your employer gives you a 5% contribution, if you contribute 5%, then 5% should be the bare minimum contribution under step 3. Because the next step is to pay off your high interest debt besides your mortgage as quickly as possible. I did this when I was on my debt-free journey between 2014 and 2016, when I paid off over $110,000 in consumer debt. And I can tell you that it was such a huge weight off my shoulders. And there was no way that I could have gone to steps 5, 6, or 7 if I still had my debt. And I spent 2 years paying off my debt. And because of the sacrifice I made in step 4, I was able to proceed to step 5. If you can't make the sacrifice to get out of consumer debt, like your credit cards, personal loans, 401k loan, or car loans, you're never going to be able to achieve financial independence. And I'm not trying to discourage you, because it's just a fact. It's a simple math problem. After I paid off my debt in 2016, I spent another 6 months piling up my cash reserve, but only to my emergency fund. This is more than what I did in step 2, because step 2 was just to cover my insurance deductibles in case of a short-term emergency. But step 5 is where you create a cushion between you and the floor, right? And think of your emergency fund as a mattress between you and the floor, because that thick mattress is going to prevent you from getting back into debt again or going back to step 4. You should not invest for retirement until you have your cash reserve, because then your money's all going to be tied up in your retirement account, right? I combine my emergency fund and my rainy day fund for the purpose of covering my loss of income due to unemployment, injuries, or long-term care. If there's a family emergency that requires me to buy a plane ticket within 24 hours to visit them, then I could use my emergency fund to buy an expensive last-minute plane ticket to see someone. The bottom line is that step 5 is preventing me from getting back into debt again. You have to be patient and get this step done. And the basic rule of thumb is that if you're in a dual income household where your spouse can cover the expenses while you're unemployed, then have a minimum of 3 months of expenses set aside in your emergency fund. However, if you're in a single income household, then you should save at least 6 months of your expenses. Don't keep your entertainment fund, travel fund, and emergency fund combined. They need to be completely separate from one another. You can check out the separate video I did on the cash reserve strategy. After maxing out the emergency fund, the next step is to max out your Roth IRA and HSA. If you don't have an HSA, then just do the Roth IRA. And step 7 is where you max out your 401k contribution up to the IRS limit. The same rule applies if you have a 403b or TSP. If you can't just get there yet, then just try contributing up to the maximum until you reach a 25% savings rate between HSA, Roth IRA, and 401k. If you can't make it to 25%, then you're going to have to increase your income or lower your discretionary expenses. And step number 8 is to achieve a 50% savings rate. And then we give you some examples or scenarios with $100,000 in gross income. If you're single and under 50, you are maxing out your IRA, HSA, and 401k. That's already 30% of your income towards retirement. You will still have an additional 20% to save, and that can be towards your taxable brokerage account. And if you're married and you are the sole provider for the household, maxing out your IRA, your spouse's IRA, HSA, and 401k will put you in the 40% savings rate just for your retirement. That's going to be too much going into your retirement if your household income is only $100,000. So I would actually go back to step 7 and hold off on maxing out the employer retirement plan until your income goes up. What you don't want to do is tie up all of your money in retirement, because then you don't have a lot of room to save for other expenses that you need. If your household income is $200,000 a year, then that puts you in the 20% retirement savings rate. And remember that your goal is to save as much money as possible to retire early, but don't tie up all of your money in the retirement accounts that you don't have immediate access to. If you don't make enough to complete step 7, then just increase your retirement savings rate to 25%. And step 9 is to build generational wealth. This is where you should think about creating a trust, investing in real estate, the 529, UTMA, UGMA, or other investment assets you can pass down to your children or grandchildren. Even if you don't have any kids or don't plan to have any kids, you need to start thinking about how to protect your assets. Your net worth might already be exceeding around $500,000 at this point. And the final step is to pay off your mortgage. The beauty of owning a home is that your house will build equity over time. So your 15 or 30-year mortgage payments will eventually become cheaper over time as well with inflation. You won't have to worry about the rising cost of rent if you already own a home. You don't have to wait until step 10 to pay off your mortgage. When my wife and I turn 50 years old, our goal is to not owe any mortgage for our primary home. That's because at the age of 50, we want to be more risk averse when it comes to debt. While we're in our 30s and 40s, we want to slowly pay down the mortgage while we invest the rest into the stock market. There's also nothing wrong with paying off the mortgage early. And I would just make sure that you have at least completed steps 1 to 7, and steps 8, 9, and 10 can be done in any order or at the same time. And there is nothing wrong with paying off your mortgage early in your 30s or 40s. I'm not against it at all. I know someone who paid off his mortgage at the age of 30 and he doesn't regret it one bit. The only expenses I want to worry about are the property tax and homeowner's insurance. The generational wealth I want to pass down is my real estate 529 college savings plan, retirement plan, and most importantly, financial education to my kids and eventually grandkids maybe. And I don't want to give them millions of dollars in wealth when I die without properly educating them on wealth management. It's like getting $100 million from a lottery ticket without having any financial knowledge.